Hi, I'm State Representative Carolyn Tomei, and you are watching Milwaukee Today, which is really Milwaukee Yesterday, because we've been doing for the last several months shows about the history of Milwaukee, and we've been talking with folks who've lived in Milwaukee for a long time and can share with us their memories of the history of Milwaukee. So thank you for joining us, and I have as my guest today former Mayor Bill Hupp, businessman Bill Hupp. Thank you again, Bill, for joining me. Appreciate this.
Thank you,
Bill,
Carolyn.
last time we were talking about you going to the grocery stores in Milwaukee, to the Safeway when it had been in Milwaukee, and to Albertsons, and taking food to the needy, taking it to St. John's Episcopal Church, where they still serve meals on Sunday afternoons, to the Senior Center, and to the Annie Ross House. The Annie Ross House is a shelter home for families who have had to leave their homes. So, and you're still doing that, Bill, is that correct?
I'm doing it for the Senior Center only at the present time.
Okay. But somebody else
for a lot
has
of
picked
reasons.
Up on. Well, it's getting a little harder for you to do this.
It is, but I have to give Albertsons a lot of credit and thanks for what they let me have on yesterday morning. Yesterday morning, I got there at about 7 o'clock in the morning. All that was on the rack that they didn't sell, they put in a cart, and I get the cart.
That's great.
And I get it. I take it. Either I take it or someone picks it up at my house and takes it to the center.
Wonderful.
But they get the cakes and the cookies and the breads and the rolls and I think they get 25 cents or something for it down there. It still goes to a good cause.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wouldn't stop it. And I got to do something, Carolyn.
Well, you've been active for
something.
a good many years, Bill. Bill, something else that you've done is you used to amplify Christmas songs throughout the city, as I recall. You started doing that in 1961.
Can we go back a little bit before that?
Absolutely.
When I was on the council?
Yes.
Okay. Even before I was on the council, Joe Bernard was the mayor, and we met at the council chambers. The council chambers had no rugs, hardwood floors, and wooden church chairs, individual chairs.
Right.
And if you think it was easy to hear what was going on, with people coughing and shoveling their feet and so on, it was almost impossible. I got Joe and the council to agree to let me build up a sound system so that with speakers, so that they could hear what was going on.
Right.
And they did it. I did it. That was my hobby, was electronics and amplifiers and hi-fi and so on. I built up a system that had 7 microphones, 5 for the council, 1 for the city attorney, 1 for the city manager, 4 speakers around the edge of City Hall, and a system that controlled each mic separately. The loudspeakers we could turn down, and the weak ones you could turn it up. And for a long time, that really helped. More people would come to the meetings because they could find what was going on.
Sure.
And then there was so I still had the amplifier. I built up an amplifier, put it in the little pinto, and I drove every election day. I would drive around town, all over this town, saying, get out and vote. I don't care how you vote.
That was before vote by mail.
Oh, that was before vote by mail, and it was before I think it was the...
absentee ballots?
No, the other civic club that carried the bell around.
I don't know.
Anyway, I did it for a long time. And then every Christmas with the Pinto and the little amplifier, speaker on the roof, and a recorder in the car, and we're go all over this town playing Christmas music. So, by the way, Carolyn, I still have that little amplifier. I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Give it to the Historical Museum.
Well, if they know how to use it. It's a Mickey Mouse thing, but it really did the job.
Oh, that's great, Bill. Good for you. Bill is all shook up. This is, some articles, city effectiveness. You've always been a good critic of the city.
Amen. Amen. And it's deserved, and it always helped. It was never negative. It was always, you can do it better.
Positive criticism. Bill, something else we talked about a little while ago when you and I were talking before the show was about the lumberyard also making donations to folks.
Well, we just got through talking about the bread and the food from Safeway and Albertsons. About 7 years ago from now, 7 years from now, Carolyn, and this is 2002. Yeah.
2002,
okay.
Right.
The Milwaukie Lumberyard was sold to Steve Morse.
Morris, right.
Yeah. And I refinished the upstairs in our house, and so I knew them down there. When Steve bought it, I asked him if he would mind if we had a stove for heat. Could I have some of the scrap? Mm-hmm. It was all right. So if there was any, he said you can have it.
So you took scrap wood to burn in your wood stove.
Yeah.
Great.
Carolyn, then I realized that an awful lot, he hired a big dumpster, and an awful lot of their scrap was going into that dumpster and being hauled away, and that cost some money. And I made a deal with Steve Morse, and he's 100% cooperative. Over 500 full cords of wood have gone out of that lumberyard to people who need it.
So how do you get it, excuse me, to the people who need it, Bill?
Well, I have a real nice inn down at the senior center. And Cheryl Nagy is the one that takes care of those things. And she called me up and she says, Bill, we have a family that really needs some wood. Is there enough for them? I said, give me their name and we'll put them on the list. We have a list of people every Saturday morning, almost without exception, Carolyn, a cord of wood goes out of that lumberyard to people who need it.
That's wonderful.
Every Saturday morning. And you figure 7 years, 52 weeks a year, and you do the math. That's how much is going on. And we get ours too, you know. But people get it that need it.
That's great.
And,
good. And it doesn't go to the landfill, which is such a waste.
No, it doesn't. No, it's really, it goes right along with what Ann and Bill have done with, because she's right in there with me keeping.
Your wife, Ann.
Yeah, you bet.
That's great. Okay, there was something about Southern Pacific.
Well,
railroad crossings.
You were a mayor of this town. You lived in this town.
Right.
What is one of the biggest problems in downtown? What is one of the biggest problems, regardless of anything else? What is this downtown complaining about always? Parking. I won't put you on the spot. There never is enough parking downtown. Well, Bill Hupp now, I lived here on Washington Street. The railroad track went here. My studio was here. And here was the railroad track, and here was Southern Pacific property. Went from Washington to Monroe Street. I was able to convince the city to agree to lease that property on the east side of the tracks.
Right.
That whole parking area down there into a city parking area. and it'll hold dozens of cars.
Oh, yes. That's a
And-
great idea. I didn't know that you were responsible for that. Good
it
for
was
you.
my customers couldn't find a place to park because they were parking on the street. Now they could park up there.
That's great. Good.
And the other parking, I was always trying to figure out something that was needed.
Yeah.
The nice big parking lot across from City Hall used to be a big lumber yard. Do you remember that?
No.
Yep, it was Stransky's, I believe. And when they decided to move out, and I was glad they did, I really wrote my column, and we have to buy that. We need the parking. We have to buy that. We did, and it's parking. So whatever. Now.
Now it's always full, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure is.
Yeah.
But it also is an awful nice place for our farmers
market. Oh, absolutely. And for those who are watching this, I just want to remind them that every summer we have farmers market that starts in May and goes until October.
That is another one of Milwaukee's jewels.
It is indeed. It is.
And
One I'm
not
very
only
proud
that, along we have our festival days. Now we're going to have our centennial. And where is it a lot going to happen? It's going to happen, hopefully, in our once proud junior high school.
Right.
And the parking lot across from City Hall.
Yep.
So those are all good things.
Absolutely. Bill, one of the first things we talked about last week was about your involvement with the Traffic Safety Commission. We didn't talk very much about that. Tell me a little bit more about your involvement in that and why you thought that was important.
Well, I think that anyone that was as interested in safety as I have always been, and as carrying a badge and a uniform,
right?
Not only for Portland Police, the stunt and drill team was espousing safety in their programs all the time, and I guess, and of course, Riegsecker, Sheriff Riegsecker and Sheriff Joe Schob, with the KGON and radio show once a week. We were on there. We talked traffic safety as well as other police business. Did you know anybody in Oregon City like Stan Orzechowski? Or
No.
Well, he was a great, big, loving cop. Everybody loved him. He was a kid's favorite. He took me under his wing, and we drove around in the car once in a while. But anyway, the whole idea was that when you have traffic, you have problems. And so our program on the radio was about traffic and correcting problems. And I brought it to Milwaukee. We didn't have one here. There wasn't anything here.
We didn't have a Traffic Safety Commission.
And I wasn't on the...
It's now called a board, but it's still active, very active.
Well, yes, it is. In fact, it'll always be a need for it, more and more.
Yes,
Anyway,
absolutely.
yeah.
As we have more and more traffic, it becomes more and more important. I apologize. I seem to be having some allergic reaction, so.
Well, it could be my cough drop. I don't know.
No, I don't think it is. I have a copy of some things that you have given to the Milwaukie Historical Society, dated June 1st, 1977. You gave a folding metal Girl Scout cup, a Girl Scout handbook and sash, and I'll bet that came from Ann, not from you.
Sure did. Well, Ann gave the museum her wedding dress.
Oh.
And I gave 2 full formal tails and hi-hats.
Really? That you wore?
No. Well, yes, I did. In fact, well, anyway, I did. And we gave that big 30-day clock in the kitchen. Was It was appraised at $700. It came from the old Multnomah County Library when they went to electric, and it still works fine.
Oh, that's
Keeps
great.
time. Chris McDonald.
Now, Chris McDonald sort of started the Historical Society,
Oh,
didn't
she
she?
did.
And
You
that's
bet.
Bill McDonald's wife.
Yeah,
She's now deceased.
yeah. But Bill McDonald, or rather, Chris
Chris?
McDonald, would locate very historic documents and pictures, and she'd come down to Bill Hupp and say, Bill, we can't have these for the museum, but would you copy them for us? You know how many $100 worth of copying I did for Chris
In
McDonald?
those days, we didn't have copy machines. That was a little more difficult.
And since there was no money involved at the for salaries for Chris, that was a pat on the back, you know.
You bet. And also, this from 1990, Bill and Ann Hupp have been giving their time and transportation to help our Head Start program, Children and Families. Tell us about that, Bill.
Well, the food that we got when Head Start was having trouble, their budget was cut, and we found out about it. And it was while I was getting food from the Safeway store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just made them another one every week. We would have a load for them. So
For Head
when
Start.
when they got it, no one else got it at the time.
Yeah.
But
Good for you. Something else that you did, we didn't talk about this when we were talking about public or traffic safety. How did you get Southern Pacific to improve the railroad crossings in Milwaukee?
well, there's too many railroad crossings in Milwaukee.
There are a lot.
And it is true that some of them, the trains go very slow, but when you see accidents as a result of a slow train, no light at the intersection. Yes, the crosswalks were there, but that's dark. And twice I saw women have the train hit women, hit cars.
Right.
And I guess, I don't know how many times I wrote about it, but I think I shamed the city for not demanding the crosswalks and the
arms that come down, right.
So I wasn't the only one. I just stopped tolerating it at all,
And so you pushed to have the arms
Well-
come down so people can't drive their cars through there. So
we hope.
Yeah,
Sometimes they do, Carolyn, you know. Nothing is perfect.
in my neighborhood, you know, I live in Island Station area,
Yes.
and we have several streets that have cross over the railroad, and we have no arms going through. So there have been some times where there have been some close calls, and there have been people who have run into the trains.
Well, if you take my advice, you'll get the neighbors all head up and get them to put them.
We've tried that, and we haven't
No.
finished. Talk some about Old Stinky. That, as you know, is one of my very favorites.
Oh, boy.
Old Stinky, of course, is the Kellogg treatment plant.
Yeah.
And I'm a neighbor to that plant. It has been there 25 years.
I know you are, but don't feel like you're just a neighbor of Old Stinky. I live on the other side of the tracks from you and Old Stinky.
And you
if
still
you
smell it,
think
don't
with
you?
that south wind blows right into our bedroom that we don't know where Old Stinky is, we get it too.
I know you do.
And one influential man in the city of Milwaukee is George Van Bergen. And he had his office on 21st, really just around the corner from my studio. And when I got on the council, he used to come over and say, Bill, I got one for you. Will you see what you can do about this, about that? And one of the things he said, when in hellfire they got rid of that damn Smoky or Stinky down there? And I said, well, why don't you start writing letters? But I went down with the tape recorder, and Abrahamson, I think, was the one. Yeah.
Right.
I was here in the city when the city decommissioned its own treatment plant.
Which was down on Kellogg Creek, right? Not Kellogg,
no,
Johnson Creek. Sorry,
Johnson
you're
Creek.
right.
On McBroad Avenue.
Right.
And 17th. Okay. When the new treatment plant was merely a sales thing to get the people to pay for it, they came to the city council and promised that they would never know it was there. Well, you know what a lie that was. They've been lying ever since.
Yes.
It's been stinking ever since.
I know it.
I don't. Well, somebody asked me when are you going to be able to do something really worthwhile on the waterfront? And I said, well, get rid of the treatment plant.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And so that is a thorn in our side.
Yes.
And it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of persuasion to get people to pay for it. And I hope that there'll be enough of them that'll stop holding their nose and will vote to get rid of it.
I hope so too, Bill.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you're supportive of that. I didn't realize that you were the person who initiated the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag at the beginning of the city council meetings.
Well, when I became mayor of the city council, there were some things I immediately wrote in the column. Folks, it's a new regime. Come as you are, and we will have coffee and cookies for you to come.
And we still do.
That was my thought.
It's great.
Okay. I lost my train of thought.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance. When I first came to Milwaukee, Les Peak,
Bless his heart.
Betsy's heart, talked me into joining the Milwaukee Elks. And outside of veterans and patriotic groups, I don't think there's anyone more patriotic than an Elk. The Elks lodges are 100% for America. And of course, they have a Pledge of Allegiance there. Mm-hmm. And when I got on the council, the flag was there, but there was no pledge. So I insisted that from then on, we'd have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And we all go for it, don't we, dear?
Yes, we do.
You bet
indeed.
we do.
You bet we do. And you also donated 6 large flags to the city when the city couldn't afford to buy them. Tell us about that.
But, you know, as time went by, and I was here long enough to see the city go up and down and in and out and up and down, and sometimes they'd run out of money. They ran out of money and we lost the North Clackamas Park for a while. And we had firemen who were willing to go out and put the flag up every day by City Hall. But then they refused to go up because the flag was so torn that they didn't feel it was right to put it up. So Max Thompson was the city manager, and he said, we can't go out and buy flags. Bill Hupp was in business down there. Bill Hupp put a whole stock of flags and poles in his studio and sold them for $5. And I got from Les Peak and from other people donations, and I went down to City Hall and gave the City Hall a total of 6 flags to fly at City Hall when they couldn't buy them.
Good for you. Something else you did, and when you and Joe Bernard were on one day here on this show,
yeah.
And you were talking about a woman who would take notes. Before we had a recording in City Hall of city council meetings, she took notes. She was a secretary, right?
She was executive secretary.
Right. So tell us that is a funny story.
Well, she was a funny gal. Nell Martin, red-haired, feisty, and everybody loved her. She was but she was executive secretary. She handled the business as usual. She sat at the lectern with all the council. There was 6 up there, 5 council and Nell. And this was way back now, when the council would hold a meeting in that noisy room, and hold a very short meeting maybe, and hit the gavel and go down the basement of Glenn's men's shop and play poker after the meeting. It was good. That's how far back it was. Nell would fold her. She didn't like what the boys were talking about on the council. If she didn't like what they were saying or what their vote was or anything, she'd be damned if I'll put that in the minutes. And she didn't mind saying it. In those days, you could say it, anything you wanted to. It was just the hay was in the hayloft, you know. Where's the city record? Joe Bernard was mayor. And I said, Joe, don't you think that for the sake of history and the record of the city that we should have some permanency to our minutes of the council? Make a long story short, he said yes. The council said, yes, Bill, what do you suggest? I said, let me talk to Howard Manning at the TV shop. Will you sell the city a Wollensack reel-to-reel, 7-inch reel-to-reel recorder so that we can record the meetings of City Hall? He said yes. He sold it, I think it was $79, I think, was for the recorder. From that time on, there has been electronic recording of the city, and Nell Martin didn't like it.
I'll bet she didn't.
Nell Martin didn't like it, but
that's a great story.
We laughed, and she oh yeah. I think
we have about 2 minutes.
Okay, I think as I recall, and I don't think I'm wrong, and I recall she was so happy about not being able to take the minutes anymore. She didn't put down anything more than that she wanted to, and she got mad and she sat down
in the audience?
Well, on the table where the city manager and city attorney were.
That's a great story. Thank you so much for coming, Bill. It's always fun talking to you.
Well,
and I think that I'm allergic to your old papers here. These are wonderful, but I just feel like I'm going to probably sneeze my way through this whole program.
Well, Carolyn, if you blame it on the paper and not me.
Oh, dear. No, I would never be allergic to you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm State Representative Carolyn Tomei, and you are watching Milwaukie Today, which is really Milwaukie Yesterday, because we've been talking about the history of Milwaukie. We've had as our guest former Mayor Bill Hupp, who is a wonderful citizen of Milwaukie and has been for many years. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you.